Morning, everyone. Happy Easter. It is Easter. I'm sitting here. So I made a post yesterday. Actually, I've been watching the confirmation hearings on Navajo Nation TV, and a lot of good information. There's information, data that's collected and presented to Navajo Nation Council, very similar to information and research that is collected for the federal government and Congress and House of Representatives. All these reports are conducted by experts and researchers and given to decision makers and legislatures. So the information that I posted about, I heard on one of the council sessions, and also being on the Navajo Agricultural Product Industry Board. We are privy to information that a lot of people don't get access to, but I think with the Navajo Nation TV, if you watch the sessions when council is in session, you can hear a lot of information and hear some data and numbers. To make a little bit more point, emphasize the point a little bit more, a lot of the council delegates said that people don't go to council meetings or chapter meetings or grazing committee meetings to understand the issues that are going on the local level, which was a good point. I mean, that does make sense. But so listening to the confirmation, there's a lot of data that's being shared to council delegates so they can make legislation and pass legislation. So in the hearing, the confirmation hearing for J.T. Willie, smart, young, 34-year-old, up-and-coming division director, Division of Economic Development. He had some really good points, but I had heard one of the council delegates made a comment that Farmington, New Mexico, the city of Farmington, receives $135 million in retail dollars from Navajo people. That was a report that was given to council, either the 23rd or the 24th council, on what was going on. People were commenting on my post saying, "Well, why don't Navajos do that on their reservation?" And it's a good point. It's a good point to make. It's a good question to raise. But whenever you look at it, one of the challenges is the bureaucracy. And so people commented in the post that there's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of red tape. And the reason why there's a lot of red tape is because the reservation lands are held in trust by the federal government. And what that means is, you can go through your local chapter, your local community, through your up through the different levels of RDC, Resource and Development Committee, NABI, Nabakayutkit Committee. These are standing committees. Also, all the way up to the 24th Council, or the Council, whichever number it is. But those are the different levels it has to go through. In addition, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Reclamation, all these federal entities also have to approve it. So in that session that I was listening to, one of the council delegates said that, I think it was Mr. Halona from Twin Lakes, Tohatchee area, said that he had a relative that wanted to start a mechanic business, a shop. And it took him 5 years because of the red tape. So I know people say, "Oh, well, it's easy to do this." Well, it's easy when the land is owned and can be purchased. I think that's the business model for Walmart and McDonald's. Those companies, they want to own the land. That's usually, if you look at finance and accounting, land is the only resource that accumulates in value. I do a lot of research as well on Warren Buffett, and he makes a comment that if you invest in gold, gold really doesn't appreciate in value. It is a metal. It's expensive because there's not a lot of it. But you take a look at that, and with the land, that's where the value is. And like I live in Farmington, and my wife and I own our house here, and the value in it is in the land appreciating. Yeah, you put a house on it, but the house depreciates, right? It loses value each year. That's why businesses can write off depreciation expenses, as they, to offset their income. But then you look at that, right, and you look at those processes that are in place, and whenever you look at the way nations are, Native nations, when the land is held in trust, that creates a lot of barriers. And I think that's one thing. I know there are some people debating on my post, but the thing is that it's easy to make judgments and say, well, what if you could do this? Well, that's going to reverse hundreds of years of changing law, executive orders, treaties, all these different layers that are impacted to make change. So I think that's one thing. I mean, I remember about 15, maybe 20 years ago, my dad was was in charge of the Kayenta Township. He was the town manager, and Walmart wanted to come in and put a store in Kayenta. This is an example. For communities to designate land as for economic development or for business site. This is a business zone. They have to withdraw that land and go through the federal government, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, to say that this land is going to be designated as business. And typically, it's on the right-of-way along highways. But not only that, but these are also grazing lands, right? A lot of the land on the reservation is grazing. So they have to meet with the grazing committee and the grazing body of government or entity to withdraw that land. Okay, and not only that, but there's also the land use permit that has to go through to have land pulled out. And that's the challenge there that exists, is that when that happens, businesses don't have a lot of money. Well, they have a lot of money. Walmart has a lot of money. But the thing was, it was taking too long for Walmart to get the land put in place and the law and the legislation put in place. So it was just quicker for them to build another Walmart. So, in Farmington, we have the West Walmart over here. And we had already, so now we have two. And I saw somebody made a comment on the post as well, saying that the Walmart in Gallup is the number one Walmart in sales in the United States. That's pretty common in some of these on these border towns surrounding the Navajo reservation. I think about maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I remember reading in another journal that Gallup had the most number of millionaires per capita in the state of New Mexico. And a lot of people were saying that that's because of the pawn shops, the hotels, the different eateries there in Gallup. But I mean, that's another example of those money from Navajo people being funneled to border towns. And these are discussions that need to be had and talked about and people to think about, instead of only council having this information, because Navajo people are the consumers. They need to be aware that this is where the dollars are going. And on the other hand, too, you look at the business owners in these communities, and in business, going through business school, they talk about the consumer being always right. You try to meet the needs of your customer, and if you're not meeting their needs, something needs to be adjusted. I look at Farmington in the last couple of years. Even though the oil and gas industry has taken a hit, we're still having restaurants being developed. And I think that's part of the economic development model, is to be the regional business hub for the area. So then, that's where you need input. You talk about people talk about getting input from their stakeholders and whatnot, and that's why I posted that statistic, that data point, that $135 million. Well, input needs to be gathered from Navajo people. I mean, that's basic. That's basic research. You research your community to see what they're interested in, what they want. And that's why I pointed that out, because that's the buying power of the Navajo people is absolutely tremendous. There's Farmington, there's Gallup, there's Holbrook, there's Winslow, there's Flagstaff, there's Page, there's all these border towns, and they need to be seeking input from Native people, Navajo people. Actually, somebody posted over on the comment in the box as well, the post, and they said, well, there's the Ute people, there's the Hickory Apache, there's Navajo, and if their needs aren't taken into account, that's going to hurt the local community in the pocket. And you look at taxes and the impact it has. Farmington has really nice parks. Farmington has really nice aquatic center, street lights, and the schools are. I mean, I work in the school, so I have a direct impact. That impact is felt. That you can see, and if you don't understand that, if you don't understand how those tax dollars and that revenue impacts the local community and the economy, that's pretty. Then you're missing something. I know somebody also commented that, well, Peabody Coal Company shuts down, it'll drop significantly. And I don't disagree with that. I think that's an important point. I'm just looking at the messages over here, so I'm not distracted. But I mean, you look at that and you take into account what's going on here. Somebody also commented that whenever they see patrons in Farmington stores, the registrars, the clerks, and the people that are checking them out, the managers, are rude to their clients. That's one other reason why I pointed out, because that does happen. I mean, I've been in stores where people, where the I guess not the customers, but the clerks, the registrars, people who are running the cash register are rude to Navajo people, and that's not right. That's if that's your consumer, then you should value every dollar that they provide. They pay for your wages and whatnot. So these are decisions, these are issues that need to be talked about. We need to think about that. I mean, that's it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that's going to the Farmington community for the different programs that are in place here. I know a couple weeks ago I talked with the San Juan leadership, and one of the points I was trying to make, and this is another data point that I had heard maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that they're saying that 75 to 80 cents of every Navajo dollar goes to a border town. So that's 135 million there. You see, and part of that is that the infrastructure needs to be put in place on the reservation, but then it does take time for business to be established and created, and for that land to be designated as business development. So those are some things that need to be considered. I'm going through and reading some of these other comments. I mean, it's a good discussion. I mean, it's if this discussion isn't going to be had, and this awareness isn't going to be raised, and numbers like this aren't going to be put out there, then everybody is in the dark. No one's going to know what's going on. But that's the thing. Like, if people would go to council sessions or listen to the streaming of council sessions, then people will have access to that. Another point I wanted to make was, I think Mr. Haley was being confirmed for the Navajo Nation EPA, and he had another fact that I thought was pretty amazing. He had commented that the Gold King spill mine that happened a couple years ago. He was saying that 300 gallons of toxic waste is being released into the water per minute. So that's one other thing. I was like, wow, that's a substantial amount. But then again, he also made the comment that, well, this is there's this spillage that has happened in the past as well. So again, that's another point that if you listen to those sessions, these are our delegates where a lot of research and data is gathered, for them to make legislative decisions and whatnot. There was some comments about racism on there as well. A friend of mine that I went to school with, and he's saying, well, Navajo pride. Well, it's not just about Navajo pride; it's about equity and equality. And if you have a $135 million comment, or the power of $135 million, you can say that. You can leverage that to get things done. When I was at that San Juan leadership presentation, one of the county officials or Farmington departments, or one of the departments within the Farmington municipality, commented that 80% of the Navajos, or people arrested, were Navajos. And you look at that too. If that's the case, then I'm sure 135 million of those dollars is used to help rehabilitate individuals or Native people that are going through some life struggles. And where do we get the money to take care of that? I think that was one of the comments in that convening was, well, there's 135 million reasons to help those individuals that are going through life struggles, or that's that payback that is being seen. So whenever I hear people complaining about the city of Farmington, and people in Farmington complaining about how natives that are on alcohol, that are walking the streets, are taken care of, who's paying for it? Well, the Navajo people are paying for it, is what it comes down to. And I think that's one thing that even my neighbors here in Farmington need to understand, is that that's a lot of money. That's not thousands of dollars. That's hundreds of thousands. That's $135 million. So that's the point I'm trying to make. That's a lot of money. Let me look at some more of these comments. And I think the other thing too, I think a lot of people made the comment that, I've known that, my parents have known that, my uncle, my dad's been talking about that for years, since 2002. People have made that comment. But again, that discussion does need to be had. If we don't talk about these issues, and people have this discussion and a debate. Obviously, as long as it stays away from race. I think one person was making it about race, and, well, what if I did this? Or, to understand how to navigate that system, those power structures. That's part of the process. There's not just a simple answer. Even in the city, even here in Farmington, there's regulations that you have to go through to have a business established and created. So I don't know, some things to think about. There's not always, whenever there's an easy answer, there's probably things that are being missed in the discussion. But hopefully this provides some clarification for my comment and my post that I made on Facebook. Ooh. So interesting how these days people can post stuff on Facebook and everybody knows about it. Actually, that was mentioned in the council sessions about the genetic news. Is that if it's on Facebook, a lot of times, you don't pay attention to it. But, there's also power in it. There's also power to raise that awareness for inequities that exist in communities and whatnot. So hopefully, for what it's worth, hopefully you all like me communicating and talking about these issues. I grew up listening to these discussions from my dad whenever he would talk with other leaders on the Navajo Nation. They would have these discussions in economic development. A couple of weeks ago, I met with Al Henderson, and he had a similar sentiment about creating business development and economic development on the Navajo Nation. And there's other leaders that talk about this too, but so I don't see any YouTube videos talking about these Native issues in very much detail. But I think that's where the educating needs to happen. I think there's a lot of Al Henderson shared a post to me, or shared some information to me, and it was saying that 35 or 37% ish of people were below the age of 18 years of the Navajo population. So there's definitely a lot of Navajo people out there that might not know of some of these issues. But anyway, for what it is, I hope you enjoy this. Follow my page, follow my podcast. So thank you. Yeah, have a good day. Happy Easter.